Okay, now we're going to get into gain as it applies to guitar amplifiers. So, I'm not a big electrician, but I know enough of this to make sense. So, if the signal you're putting into your amplifier is this tiny one out of your guitar, it's a very low voltage signal coming out of a guitar. It's literally the energy generated by the string vibrating over the magnets in the pickup. There's no batteries in your guitar. There's nothing, no amplifier in there to make it any louder than that. It is literally the shaking of that tiny bit of string that's over the pickup. That energy goes into making a tiny electric current. So even this makes it look pretty big. It's a pretty small amount of gain. That signal is going to go into, we're going to call it the preamp part of your amplifier. This is where you have, this part of the amplifier contains like the treble and the bass knob, and maybe some other ones in there. There might be a middle. And these basically allow you to take the signal that comes in and either increase the bass or increase the treble or decrease either one of them. And you want to do these sorts of things at a lower volume and get the signal just like you want it, because then that is going to go on to the power amplifier. And this part is just going to take that signal, which may have been rearranged slightly by this into some new shape. It's going to take that and make it freaking huge. It's going to make it a much bigger sized wave that's enough power to take your guitar speaker and shake it. Loud, makes it loud. Whereas the size of the signal coming out of your guitar really won't even power any headphones worth anything. The power amp can be deafening, so it really jacks up that signal. And it does get jacked up a little bit. It gets raised up a little bit from coming out of your guitar. Really, let's say this is probably more like coming out of your guitar. This is tiny. And that gets increased to this in the preamp. Well, then let's look at what distortion does to a signal. So you have, let's say this is the range that an amplifier can work with. So if you put in a signal like this, it can handle that. Well, let's say you increase that. Now you start exceeding the comfortable level that that particular part of the amplifier can deal with. So the voltage goes up. It's intending to go higher. Let's say it's intending to go there, but it can't quite make it, so it stalls out. So instead of going up to where the wave should have gone, it stalled out to there. It comes down to here. And then it sort of fades out because it can't actually go as high as it wants. Well, let's go a little more extreme with that. Let's say you jacked up the gain so much, you before it went into the preamp, you turned it up such that it should try to achieve a waveform that looks like this. You've applied this huge amount of gain, and that part of the amplifier can't handle it. It's really only supposed to be able to get up to there. So it follows that line as far as it can, and then it's like, whoa, I can't go that high. And it kind of keeps trying. Finally, the wave comes down to here. Tries to go up there, whoa, can't do that. Whoa, falls back down. This creates actually all kinds of little waves in here and stuff. And that's why the simple sound of a clean guitar, bong, turns into like, it's because of all these other frequencies and stuff that get developed when you have pushed the signal harder than it harder than part of the amplifier can take it. And so basically, it is the simple concept of gain. You've tried to make the signal that big. You've increased the gain beyond the limits of some part of the amplifier circuit. And you get distortion because it can't accurately reproduce this wave. It very literally is distortion. It's a distortion of what it was supposed to represent. And then over the years, this distortion has become something we, desire greatly and pay lots of money for. So, going back to our little diagram of an amp, really distortion, if you have an old amp actually, like of the design era that you're getting, there was a volume knob here. That was just the volume knob. So the signal came in, and you gave it as much gain as you wanted. But as you started to turn that volume knob up and play the strings real hard, you would get distortion. You would exceed the abilities of the amp. But so you usually just back then you just turned it down because most of the time people wanted a clean sound. But you might have a really quiet guitar with really low output, so they needed to build the amplifier so you could turn that up very high and allow the amplifier to achieve its maximum volume, even if the guitar had a low output. But if you had a guitar with a hot output, with a lot of output, and you put it up to 10, then it's going to really distort because you've given it a bigger signal that it can deal with. So then people started liking distortion. So then the amplifier goes up to 10 or whatever, it goes up to a volume of 10. It's more than it can handle, and you get a bunch of distortion. Well, the problem is you get that distortion at the loudest the amp can do, and if you live in an apartment or something like that, then you might not want that distortion to occur at at the top volume of the amp. So what you can do then is have what is called a master volume over here. And so what this basically does is you can crank this volume, and then you are giving the preamp a signal that is too big for it. This is really the balance it works in. So you're getting all kinds of distortion here because it can't achieve the volume, the wattage, I should say the voltage that you're pumping into this preamp is more than it can take. So you get distortion in the preamp, but then you bring that back down by putting the master volume at like 2, some low number, and then the actual amount of voltage that is fed to the power amp to be amplified further is small. The result is you're getting distortion, but at a volume that you want. So this is where the word gain comes from. Really, gain occurs here or here. Gain occurs anywhere you can make the signal louder and quieter. But this word has been applied to that knob because you can turn up the gain and you get distortion. So this gain has sort of, in layman's terms, been shifted over to being distortion. I'm going to pause my video because I'm almost at 10 minutes.